Okay, so today we're going to be looking at the final, going to be looking at the final Robert Burns poem, which is going to be Tam O'Shanter. I spent extra time, beyond what I normally do, researching this poem and really trying to dive into it because this poem is probably probably one of the most, I'd say one of the central. I'd say this is probably one of the central texts in the what do you call it in the Scottish canon in terms of like Scottish literature. This is definitely one of the most influential texts in terms of like a lot of the themes and ideas and features of this poem have showed up in different places in Scottish culture and also more broadly in world culture. To give you an example, the idea of the devil playing the bagpipes, like you see in films, or the idea of the devil playing instruments, it's very likely that they got, that idea has been taken from here. Um, there's been a ship named after one of the main characters in this text, the Cutty Sark, and also the hat worn by a lot of Scottish people is nowadays called a tam o' shanter. It's another name for that flat cap, which is worn by a lot of Scottish people. So in any case, the point is that this poem has been extremely influential, and so I wanted to really do it justice. I really wanted to do it justice, and so and it's a long poem too, and so I spent extra time sort of researching it and trying to understand it. Um, okay, so what I'll do to begin with, I think I'll just give like a basic overview of the story. Okay, and then once I've given the overview of the story, then we'll look at sort of the poem itself and we'll look at it in kind of more detail. So to essentially the story of Tam O'Shanter is about this alcoholic named Tam O'Shanter. He's an alcoholic. He's addicted to drinking alcohol and he's basically out on the town and he drinks until it's late at night. And his wife is angry with him. She's sort of had enough of his drinking and his alcohol abuse, and she's told him to stop. And she told him if you don't stop, something bad's gonna happen to you. And he doesn't listen to her, and he keeps on drinking. And then eventually, the nighttime falls, and it's in the time of the night where people don't travel because it's dangerous. He decides it's time for him to go home, and on his way home, he basically has an experience, a supernatural kind of experience, um, and then there's a sort of moral given at the end of the story related to this experience. So it's sort of like it's like a combination of like a comedy slash horror poem. And one of the key things to keep in mind, okay, when we're going through this is um, this this writing poetry or poetry. I might have talked about this before, but poetry and writing literature, written literature and spoken literature. So this would have been like a sort of folk tale. After it was written down, it would have been a folk tale people would tell to each other, around campfires and stuff, or around in the house, around the fire. This was the form of entertainment that people had. So, there was no TV. There wasn't even any radio or anything like that, remember? So, entertainment back then was, there's no cinema or anything like that. Entertainment back then was telling stories. It was very much like has been for thousands of years. Essentially, it was telling stories and laughing with each other, telling each other, interesting and scary kind of stories, especially around like Halloween, that kind of thing. So this was a sort of form of, you could say, like popular entertainment, and that's the way to kind of think about this poem if you want to try and understand it. Try to think about it as if it's like, like sharing a video with someone or like like a comedy short or like a meme, like that kind of thing. If you have that in your mind, you'll be able to kind of capture some of the deeper ideas in it that I'll explain to you as we go on. And what I have for you, what I have for you, okay, is I've got the translation at the bottom and I've got the original on the right hand side. Because again, with Burns's poetry, it's the words in it are not like modern Scottish. They're like old Scottish, and so even for like a someone born in Scotland, they can be kind of difficult to understand, what exactly he's saying. Okay, so we begin when Chapman billies leave the street and Drouthy neighbours meet and market days are wearing late and folk began to tack the gate while we sit bousing at the nappy and getting fo and co happy and unco happy. We think now on the lang Scot smiles, the Mossie's water slaps and styles that lie between us and our hame where sits our sulky sullen dame talking about his wife gathering her brows like a gathering storm, nursing her wrath to keep it warm. So essentially, the poem opens with sort of the setting the scene of basically uh Tam O'Shanter is a man who his wife is extremely his wife is angry with him because of his drinking ways, and his wife is basically had enough. She's had enough of him and his alcoholism. And the poem itself, what we can see from the poem itself, okay, the way that I interpret this poem and the way that I read this poem is that the poem is kind of, I believe it was so popular, and it was so popular, and it's maintained its popularity till this day, because the poem is essentially like a comedy in the one sense, in that it's like funny, and it's a guy's an alcoholic, it's kind of funny, you're gonna watch his adventure, it's alcoholic going on an adventure is like a funny thing. An alcoholic hero is not something that you normally have, so it makes it comedic. Um, but what the poem does very cleverly, okay, is that it touches on things, ideas, truths, if you like, which people will agree with, which people will agree with, and laugh at because they agree with, but they may not like have said these truths out loud. I was speaking to a comedian one time, and this guy was like a sort of professional comedian. He was doing comedy for like 20 years. He did comedy for the BBC and that kind of thing. So I was speaking to this comedian one time, and one of the things he told me is that comedy, one of the keys of comedy is that people laugh when you can say something that they agree with, that either they didn't know how to put into words, or they agree with it, but they were like they didn't want to say it out loud, like something that you shouldn't they're laughing because it's like, yeah, that's true, but oh, we shouldn't say that yet. It's like I want to say that too. It's like that, like when you're with your friends and you say something, and one of the boys says something, and then you're like, oh, and then everyone laughs at it like that. It's like, oh, you're not supposed to say that kind of thing. Yeah, that's like this poem does that essentially in multiple different ways. One of the first ways it does that, okay, is it one of the first ways it does that is it touches on the idea or the trope, if you like, of the angry housewife, the sulking housewife who's angry with her husband, who's just trying to go out and have a good time. So you can imagine like all the husbands back in the day, laughing at this and thinking, yeah, my wife's like that too, or like even teasing their wife and making fun of her and saying, look, that's you in the poem, and like enjoying that experience. And what he cleverly does, um, what Burns cleverly does is that he on the one hand, the sort of joke is not like insulting in a way. It's not like pointed in that there. It's not like as if he's criticizing her. He's sort of just making a joke and making her to be funny. Like she's sulking and he's kind of funny. So no one is gonna get like actually hurt by this in like a serious way. But the other thing that he does okay is that if you notice the hero in the text, the man in the text, the male figure in the text is not himself better than the female figure. The male figure is also extremely flawed. He's an alcoholic. So it's actually it's actually comedy for the women too. The women who are listening to this story be poem be told, in that they would be able to say to their husbands, "But look, that's you. You're an alcoholic. Like all you want to do is you just want to go out and drink with your friends and stay out all night and do stupid things. And just like what happens to him, something bad happens to him, the same thing's gonna happen to you. And you should listen to me. Like I'm smarter than you, or I'm smart, and you're making stupid mistakes because you're a drunk." So one of the key things this poem does very nicely is it provides relatability, and it does it in like a comedic way where both men and women can see themselves in the poem, which is extremely important. And if you look at why does any content go viral? One of the reasons content goes viral, like beyond, say, things that are shocking or things that are, amazing to see, content like memes and, viral shorts and things, the reason they go so viral is, especially like the funny ones, the reason they go so viral is because people can relate to them. That's why they go so viral. And uh, there's an intrinsic reward to sharing. Like, if you imagine for this story to have been shared and amongst the masses, it wouldn't have been shared primarily in written form because, maybe not everyone can afford to buy a book, or maybe not everyone can read. Excuse me, everyone can listen to a story, right? So the primary way that this story would have been shared would have been by word of mouth, people retelling the story. Maybe they wouldn't have known the specific lines of the poem, but the story is relatively easy to remember. So people would have been retelling the story, and there's actually an intrinsic reward to telling the story in that when you tell the story, you get to laugh at the funny parts. So you get a dopamine reward, because obviously laughter and positive emotion are based on dopamine. So you get to feel good by just telling the story. You get a dopamine reward by telling the story, and then secondly, the you telling the story makes other people laugh. Okay, it's like when you share a funny meme or you share like a short that's like a TikTok video or something that's like funny, and then other people laugh, or like you share a funny film with someone and then they watch it and then they laugh, and then you get an additional reward from their enjoyment because now they react to you sharing this with them, and they say things like, "Oh wow, that was so funny. Thanks for sharing that with me." Or now they might share more things with you. You might have a reciprocal sort of element added to your relationship where you're both now working to make each other laugh. It's like a positive feedback loop. So this is also another reason. This is also another reason. Okay, why? This is also another reason why things become viral, and why this poem, like I said before, why this poem would have become so viral. It's because there's a reward in sharing it. There's relatability within it, and it's fun to tell the story. Also, not just because it's not just a comedy, excuse me, but it's also a scary story. And so there's a reward that you get from being able to scare your friends, or be able to tell it at Halloween, and you get to be the storyteller. You get to gather everyone around, and then you're going to be the one who knows the story. People are going to come to you and say, "Oh, tell us that story about Tam O'Shanter," and then everyone's going to have fun. You get to be that person. So there's a intrinsic reward to storytelling and to mastering the story. The story itself rewards you the better you tell it. Yet. So it's a very interesting idea, and I believe the same idea and the same dynamic, the same thing happens with today's viral content. There's a reward to making the content and sharing the content. There's a reward to it in and of itself, without any payment or anything like that. Just in and of itself, there's a social reward and a dopaminergic reward in terms of your own self, getting to laugh and things, and getting to remember the story, for the future. Okay, anyway, so there's the overview. Okay, so we begin the story, and it says, "This truth found honest Tam O'Shanter, as Ephraim era night did canter. Old Wham, never a town surpasses for honest men and bonny lassies." So basically, Tam O'Shanter is in the town of Ayr, and he's there, and he's gonna go drinking. Basically, he's saying it's a very nice place to go. It's a fun place to go drinking. There's a lot of pretty girls around, and a lot of people around that are gonna have a good time. "O Tam had style, but been so wise as taking thy ain wife's Kate's advice." So if you just listened to your wife Kate, you would have been a smart man to do that. She told you, well, that was a skellum, a blethering, blustering, drunken bellum, that you're no good, you're a drunk, you're an alcoholic. That frae November till October, every market day, you weren't sober. So basically, he's drunk the year round. If he's all throughout the year, man likes to drink. He's drunk all the way, all year round. He likes to drink. Okay. That Ilka Milder, way the miller that sat as long as thou had siller, that every naig was called a Sean, the smith, and thee got roaring fuan, that at the Lord's house, even on Sunday, you're drank with the cart. So basically, he's saying that, let me move this up. So he's saying that you got drunk with the miller, you got drunk with the blacksmith, and even at the church, when it's supposed to be a day of prayer and all that, you got drunk with the curtain, you got drunk with the what's his name, like the prayer leader, and you got drunk with them too. So this man basically he knows how to have a good time. He's just interested in drinking. Okay, arguable if it's a good time, but he knows how to drink it. So drinking is his passion, it's his hobby, and he knows how to do it. Yeah, he's become, as Aristotle said, you learn by doing, and he's done a lot of drinking. So he's become he's become a master of his art. He's become a master of his art form, and he has become a master of the drink. She prophesies that late or soon thou would be found deep drowned in the dune. So she's saying that his wife basically his wife's saying to him, one day you're gonna drown in the stream in the river because of your drinking, or be catched with warlocks in the murk by Alloway's old haunted kirk. This is some foreshadowing here. She's saying that, or one day, the witches and the ghosts are gonna catch you at the old haunted church, and we're gonna go to the old haunted church soon. A gentle dames, it gars me greet to think how many counsels sweet and how many lent and sage advices the husband frae the wife despises. So basically, the poet or the speaker the speaker in this poem, he very is very clever. Yeah, this poem is extremely, um, it's extremely well put together in that you never know exactly whose side the speaker is on. It's almost like he is on the side of the wife, of women, you could say in general, married women or women in general, and then he's on the side of the husband, the husband who's trying to drink and go out and stuff, and you don't exactly know. So in a sense, like I said before, both the married women and the men at the time, both men and women would be able to enjoy the poem, and like I said, they wouldn't feel like they were being judged by it, but instead they would be able to sort of be able to get enjoyment out of, like, saying, like when you watch a film and you see someone do something stupid and you say to your friend, that's you. Like they would be able to get enjoyment out of making fun of, like, their, in an innocent kind of way, in a fun kind of way, making fun of their husband or someone else that they know yet. So it's very very good. It's very very nicely put together. But in any case, the point is that what's his name? Tam O'Shanter loves to drink, and his wife has predicted that something bad is gonna come of his drinking. Basically, something bad's gonna happen because he keeps on drinking. There he is drinking with the miller and the he's in a bar actually here. He's drinking with the landlady and the landlord. Okay, so but to our tale, a market night. So the speaker says, let's return back to the story. But to our tale, a market night, Tam had got planted unco right fast by an ingle blazing finely, wi' reaming swats that drank divinely, and at his elbow, suitor Johnny, that's his homeboy, that's his friend, his buddy, his ancient trusty drouthy crony, his brother in drink. Tam loved him like a very brother. They had been four weeks together. The night drave on with sangs and clar. So this is drinking buddy. This is the guy he goes drinking with, and they've been drinking for a month now. Every night they've been drinking. And the ale was growing better. The landlady and Tam grew gracious with favors, secrets, sweet and precious. The sorter told his queerest stories. So they're all getting drunk around the fire and they're telling stories and they're having a good time. Yeah, while Tam's wife's at home getting angry. The landlord's laugh was ready chorus. The storm without Mike Rare and Russell. Tam didn't mind the storm whistle. So outside, a storm has started to blow up and kick off. But he's drunk and he's having such a good time that he doesn't notice the storm outside. And yes, okay, good, good. So the idea. Okay, the poem, beyond being a comedy and being a relatable comedy and being sort of a fun horror story, if you like, the poem also is philosophical in that the poem is also philosophical in that it reflects on the idea and the nature of pleasure, and the idea and the nature of you could think of it like of having fun, I feel like, or the idea of doing things which have immediate pleasure, if you like, um, but are a sort of like drinking. You have fun in the moment. They're very present things. It's fun in the moment, but then there's consequences after that, or the fun is sort of fleeting. It's like they don't last for a very long time. So the poem itself, okay, the poem itself, uh, if you notice the way that this poem sets up this philosophical questioning about pleasure, and is pleasure a good thing? And so pleasure just means to sort of enjoy something, and you can define it different ways. One would be sort of the absence of pain, that would be pleasure. Something that takes away pain, or something that pulls you in the opposite direction of pain. The more of that you have, the more pleasure you have, the less pain you have. Therefore, that would be a good. I'm not sure if this is Epicurus's version of pleasure. I think he might have included virtue in it too. I don't know, but in any case, that's one way of defining it. Another way of defining it would be something like um, just something which brings you what we might think of as like immediate happiness, or like the good feelings that you get, um, short-term joy or something like that. It's like or like sensory joy. That might be another way to think about it. It's like the joy you can get from eating a steak, from drinking alcohol, from smoking some different types of drugs, from from having fun with your friends, from playing a game like a video game, from listening to music, from listening to sort of, let's say, dance music and dancing, like that. It's like immediate good, immediate good, happy feelings like that. That's pleasure, basically. That's pleasure. Okay. Um, being intimate with a woman, or being intimate with someone like that, all those type of things, that's like pleasure, basically. Now the classic conversation around pleasure uh has always been tied to the idea that pleasure is it's short term. It doesn't last for very long yet. Pleasure is, in other words, this sort of immediate, these things like eating a steak or so on, drinking alcohol and all that. It's like it's always been looked at in the term in the frame of that it lasts like a short amount of time, and then it's gone. And also classically speaking, so there's another concept, okay, which is called hedonism, which is the idea that basically you should just live to pursue immediate pleasure, and that there's no other bigger meaning to life beyond just sort of the pursuit of immediate pleasure, which is not the same as, I would argue, my in my limited understanding of the Greeks, but it's not the same as what Epicurus would talked about when he talked about pleasure, because for him, it's funny, I actually have it here on my desk. I've got the essential Epicurus here. But in any case, and then I'm not trying to show off here, but then I've got Aristotle here. Yeah. But in any case, for Epicurus and for the Greeks, the understanding of pleasure also included the idea of virtue, of doing good, of being a good person or having good character. Okay, so what you need to understand, okay, before I get to Burns, what you need to understand is that this human beings have been thinking about this concept of pleasure for a long time before Burns ever thought about it. Okay, thousands of years before Burns thought about it, human beings have been thinking about this idea, and there's essentially always been a sort of disagreement, if you like. Okay, so here's the basic disagreement. Okay, so essentially, there's one camp of people, of philosophers, thinkers, and normally this would be, I'd say, the many of the religious thinkers and schools, if you like, positions would be in this camp. Okay, this camp, and maybe the Stoics as well might be in this camp. I'm not sure, but in any case, the this camp of people are and thinkers are those who essentially say that pleasure in and of itself is like there's two positions. One is pleasure in and of itself is like a waste of time, and if you get it, fine, but you shouldn't focus on it. Rather, you should just instead of focusing on trying to attain pleasure and different things, enjoying yourself, you should strictly focus just on virtue. Strictly focus just on improving your character and improving your behavior, your mind, your understanding of philosophy, your wisdom, your ability to handle difficulty, your virtue, your commitment to truth, courage, justice, temperance, blah blah blah, all that. So this would be the one camp. Your commitment, if you're taking the religious or spiritual, and your commitment to God, to following God's commandments, to praying, to fasting, to abstaining, and some would. So that would be the initial position. That pleasure is just, it's pointless. There's no point trying to seek it. If you get it, fine. It's like okay, acceptable. But you shouldn't seek it. In other words, you should try and seek things which would be considered higher than pleasure, like things like prayer and fasting and doing charitable works and all that. Yeah, things which are higher than pleasure, like just immediate pleasure, enjoying yourself, having fun. Okay, so there's one. Now in the same camp, which is like the religious and so on. I think the Stoics also be in this. In the same camp, you also would have people, okay, who would take this further and say not only is pleasure something that you shouldn't aim at, and if you get it, it's okay. It's not like a bad thing. But they would take this further, okay, and that they would say that pleasure in and of itself is actually a bad thing. That it's actually a bad thing, and you should do your best to abstain from it because pleasure is it's a function of the body, the worldly, earthly, lowly, animalistic body, and it is an antithesis. It is the opposite of the soul soul, the divine soul, if you're looking at it from the religious or spiritual perspective, or from the rational intellect, the divine intellect, if you mind looking at it from the more philosophical perspective. In any case, both of them would say, this camp, these people, these would be the people who would say call themselves like ascetics and stuff. They'd cut themselves off from all these type of things, and they might isolate in the desert, or they might isolate themselves away from this, or they might be completely against engaging in it at all. These people would be anti-pleasure, huh? They'd be anti it. This would be like more, literalist, religious groups. Um, the more literalist religious groups would be like this. The more sort of hyper conservative religious groups would be like this, and also the more sort of like I said, uh, more stoic. And I'm not exactly sure if the Stoics are against pleasure. I don't know yet, but I think they are not in favor of it at least. In any case, this camp basically, they say don't try and get pleasure yet because it's a waste of time. You're just going to distract yourself from what you should be doing, and it's actually a bad thing yet. So if you eat fancy food, if you engage, and this would be common yet, like you can think about, if you engage, for example, in intimacy, uh, outside of certain specific tight conditions like marriage, if you drink, if you um if you dance, if you watch films, and it can go, as to very extreme places. Um, if you talk to the opposite sex in a way which is not businesslike, if you look at the opposite sex, it can go, very, very far, depending on, which group or whatever is sort of doing the outlining of this. Then not only are you doing something which is a waste of time, but you're actually committing a sort of sin. You're committing a sin. So you're doing something wrong. Okay, you're doing something wrong, and you're doing something which is essentially like criminal. You're doing something criminal against your own soul. You're committing a spiritual crime. So this camp has always existed, by the way. It's not something new. But this camp has always existed. You know, look through history at the people who call themselves ascetics, who call themselves, who cut themselves off from society, who preach against having fun, who talk about pure 100% commitment to prayer and all that stuff, who talk about the body as being, lowly or animalistic or anti-body, who are anti-earth, who see the world as being a fallen place or a dark place or a cursed place, and so on. So this camp has always existed. Yet you can call them like the anti-pleasure camp, the no fun camp. The, the camp that gets mad when you have a party. Yeah, that's these guys. The ones they don't get no. That's these guys. All right. Okay, that's one side. Yeah. Okay, now on the other side, you would have people like the Epicureans, now like people like Epicurus and other people who, excuse me, I think maybe Aristotle might fall into this camp too. I'm not exactly sure. I need to continue. I've just started his Ethics. Yeah, I need to continue reading it. But um, you have other people. You call these maybe the moderates, or it's going to be a mixture of people. Yeah, these would be like the moderate kind of religious people, and the more spiritual, religious or just purely spiritual kind of people. And also the philosophers who don't see the body in and of itself as negative, but actually see the body as like something positive, and who see that um either that there is no next life or that this life in and of itself should be taken seriously, and that you should try to live a good life, not just spiritually, but like actually experientially. They talk a lot about the senses and, trying to understand the world through your senses and through experiences. Okay, so these people are completely opposite to the first kind, in that they would say that the medium position from these people would be something like pleasure is actually something good, and pain is actually something bad. Whereas in the other camp, they would say pain is actually something good, because if you suffer with pain, you get your sins washed away from you. And to bear pain, if you don't take the sin route, but the stoic route, to bear pain with strength is sort of a sign of your virtue and your inner power, to bear pain. The more pain and suffering you have, if you're born a slave but you bear it with courage and with fortitude and without complaint, you're better than the emperor. Yeah, you're like, so it'd be good to be born in that state. Um, so these people in the other camp, the pro pleasure camp, if you like, they're not like this. They think pain itself is the worst, depending on which philosopher, whatever you talk about. They in itself see pain as being something bad. They in itself see pain as being something bad. Epicurus would see pain as being the most bad thing, the biggest evil. Pain itself is the biggest evil. It's funny, people don't often talk about this in philosophy, right? And we should do what we can to try and lessen pain. Pain itself is not good. I think there's a very nice quote. Pain exists, but we don't have to experience it. We should do what we can to not experience it. It exists, but we should do our best to try and lessen it if we can. Something like that, yeah. In any case, the moderate position with these guys would be something like reduce pain as much as you can. So try and reduce the pain in your life. If you can have a variation of food in your life and that doesn't, hurt you in any way, you should do that, because it will make your life more colorful, more rich. If you can enjoy yourself, depending on obviously if you're talking spiritual, religious, whatever, if by if you can enjoy yourself, maybe by dating, but without doing something that would damage you again, then that would be good. If you can have fun with your friends, if you can go and have experiences which are fun to you and fulfill you in some way, they bring more joy to your life. If you can have hobbies and do fun things that you would, get enjoyment without hurting you. Because remember, the point is to avoid pain. So the caveat with doing all these things, these pleasure things, like for example, if you're gonna drink or if you're gonna, date and be intimate before marriage or whatever, the point is it can't cause pain, because pain is the ultimate bad. So you'd have to do it in a way which is like avoids hurting yourself or hurting someone else in some way. You'd have to be like you'd have to be temperate is the word. In other words, you do enough to uh, increase the joy in your life and to have fun, but not so much that it turns into something bad. Basically, not like Tam O'Shanter is drinking and his drinking's out of control, but like enough. And obviously, I'm not encouraging you to drink. Personally, I would say you should avoid it. Excuse me, because drinking in and of itself, if you can avoid it, your life will be better. Um, so too with drugs. If you can avoid it, your life will be better. But in any case, I'm just presenting to you the philosophical sort of background, philosophical background to this. So that would be the majority of this camp, I would say. They'd say, and this is kind of how we in our modern world, I think we kind of see things this way. Most of us see things this way. That you should try and have fun, where you can, in a way that doesn't hurt you or hurt other people. You should try and, add some color to your life. We don't all follow this, me myself. As much as I think this is a good idea, I'm probably more in the first camp of being just because I'm a pretty much a workaholic and I've got big, big dreams and ambitions and things. So for me, I don't really have that much fun, but I do see the benefit in it, and I don't think fun's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. But in any case, there's another position, okay, which is the more extreme end of this pleasure camp. Okay, and I'm setting this up because this is the background to what do you call it? What he's about to talk about here. This is the background to the whole philosophical center of this poem. So, so the more extreme version of this pleasure camp, okay, is the camp that basically says that pleasure is the only good in life. Pleasure is the only good, and your that there is no meaning to life, that there is no deeper sort of um there is no deeper element, there is no deeper perspective, that we are just body. So these are like the mirror opposite to the extremists in the other camp who say that we are just soul and the body is like a burden, that the body is like an evil. These people would say that we are just body. There is no soul. There is no, mind, divine mind. There is no divinity itself. We are just animals, essentially, or that we are just body, and that our only purpose in life is to have fun and to engage in pure pleasure as much as we can before we die. Yeah. Because when we die, that's it. The curtain closes and there's nothing else to the story. Everything fade to black, and that's it. The story's over. So drink as much as you can, eat as much as you can, to go and sleep with as many women as you can. Just basically do as much as you can, take as much drugs as you can. And there are people who live this way. Tam O'Shanter might be an example of that in terms of drinking. There are people who live this way, and essentially where this leads to is sort of like an empty existence. It's like the same emptiness that I'd say the religious extremist feels, except he feels emptiness because he has zero fun or pleasure in his life. This individual feels emptiness because he has zero spirituality or zero meaning, fulfillment, anything deep, which feeds his soul in his life. So both of them I'd say are incorrect. Okay, anyway, there's your backdrop. Okay, there's your backdrop to the philosophical center of this poem. And if you notice, now we can look at the poet's take. I mean, now we can look at Barnes's take. So when when Tam is in the place drinking, engaging in pleasure, essentially he's drinking, drinking, drinking. The storm outside does not bother him. Okay, the storm outside does not bother him, meaning that the pleasure, now you can see the connection, the pleasure has removed his pain. The pleasure has removed the pain of the storm. It's removed his fear. It's removed his anxiety. He's just having a good time. So, in terms of the now enlightenment thinking, which is what Barnes is part of, enlightenment, I would say that the enlightenment thinking is probably the moderate approach of the on the pleasure side. Essentially, it's the idea that you should have fun, but you shouldn't go to extremes. Basically, that's like if you sum up. So Tam is drinking. Tam is drinking, and he feels no fear. He's not scared, but He is enjoying himself and he doesn't hear the storm outside. The storm doesn't affect him because he is engaging in something fun, pleasurable. Okay, so it's a good. But then the poet goes on to say, but pleasures are like poppies spread. You seize the flower as bloom is shed, or like the snow falls in the river, a moment white then melts forever. Or like the borealis, meaning the northern lights, that flat year you can point their place, you can't get your finger on them. Or like the rainbow's lovely form, evanishing amid the storm. Nay man can tell the time or tide the hour approaches that Tam must write. So the speaker goes on to say, okay, that pleasure is something which is fleeting, okay, and that it's only very um it's like a flash, it's like a flash and then it's gone. That's pleasure. So the speaker's perspective on this, as I said before, is that it's pleasure is a good thing, it's fun, you can engage in it, maybe you should engage in it to some extent, but you should recognize that in and of itself it is only something which lasts a little bit of time and then it's gone. So chasing it like Tam does, drinking every day, chasing, is not a good thing. Is not a good thing. So you should be moderate. So he would fall more in the camp, I would say, like I said, of the moderate kind of thinking about it, which is kind of I think the smart thing to do. You want to have fun, but you don't want to chase it because in and of itself, chasing pleasure is like chasing. You eat a steak and you feel good for an hour, and then or two, and then you're hungry again. And then if you just try and keep eating steak, eventually it just it's empty. There's nothing. What you're not gonna feel satisfied in a real deep way. Okay. So anyway, Tam now realizes that it's time for him to go home. He's been drinking all night. And it's time for him to go home. Okay. And uh the storm now has gotten really violent and wild. And the storm has kicked off and he's gonna leave to go home at the time when people don't ride home at because it's dangerous. You can get robbed or you can get killed or something bad can happen to you because it's that time of night where bad things happen. So essentially sets up the scene for what's going to come next. Okay, so the wind blew. It was blowing at its blast. So it's blowing really hard, basically. The rattling showers rose on the blast, the speedy gleams the darkness swallowed, loud and deep and lang the thunder bellowed that night a child might understand. The devil had business on his hand. Setting up. You can imagine telling the story to some kids or something. They'll be like, oh, oh, I can't believe what's gonna happen next. They'll be thinking they're getting scared at. Wheel mounted on his grey mare Meg, a better never lifted like that's his horse. Tam Skelpit on through Dub and Mire, despising wind and rain, and fire, while holding fast his good blue bonnet, his hat, while crooning over some old Scots sonnets. He's reading some poetry to himself while he's going home, whilst glowering round the prudent carers to help him sort of. He's like very nervous because it's that time of night. Lest boggles means goblins catch him unawares. Kirk Alloway, that's the church, was drawing near, where ghosts and howlets nightly cry. Owls. So on his way home, he is gonna ride past this church, and this is a real church. This is in Ayr, and this church was like this. It was a ruin. It was broken down even in Barnsley's time. I think it broke down in the 1400s or 1500s. So it was empty. The church is supposed to be empty. There's supposed to be no one there. And he's riding home, okay, and he's gonna go past this church. It's supposed to be empty. Okay. So he goes on to say, he's got a bottle in his hand. Goes on to say, excuse me. Goes on to say, by this time he was across the ford. We're in the snow, the chapman snored, and past the Burks the milky stain, where drunken Charlie's breakneck's bane. So when he's riding his horse towards the church, the broken down church, which is on his way home, he's riding past places where people have been killed. Okay, where people have died and been killed. And one of the crimes that's been committed here is a child has been murdered here. A child has been killed here. A woman has killed herself. So this is like what you can think about like a haunted place. It's like a scary place, place where the devil or witches and demons and things are gonna be attracted to. Yes. Um, supernaturally speaking. Obviously, it's not real yet, but the point is, in terms of the story and the ghosts and things, it's like a nice setup for what's to come. What this verse does, if you think about the placement of this, why was it good to put this before what comes next? This verse here kind of acts as, or this section of the poem acts as a sort of if you think about horror films, when the villain or the monster is upstairs, or the upstairs, and the hero starts to slowly walk up the stairs one step at a time, and the audience watches in anticipation of like what's gonna happen. It's like that, huh? It's like setting up, basically. It's like slowing down the pace and building up the tension, huh? It's like, the hero's walking up the stairs and they see blood on the floor, and then the stairs start creaking, the lights start flashing. It's like that. It's setting up the listener or the reader for what's about to come next. Where Mungo's mother hanged herself before him, Dune pours all his floods, that's the war. The doubling storm roars through the woods, the lightnings flash from pole to pole, near and more. Near the thunders roll, when glimmering through the groaning trees, Kirk Alloway seemed in a blaze. That's the broken church that I showed you. Through Ilka bare the breams were glancing, and loud resounded mirth and dancing. So he goes to the church, and he sees there, it should be empty. It should be no one there because it's the middle of the night. But he sees that there is light. And then when he gets near to it, he hears music. And then he sees that it's filled with witches and evil spirits, demons dancing, and dead things, ghosts dancing. They're having a concert, a disco, they're having a night of dancing in the broken down church. The broken down church. Inspiring, bold John Barleycorn. That's another word for alcohol, basically. What dangers thou can make us scorn, because he's drunk. He's got basically he's been encouraged by the drink to continue going. The alcohol is making pushing him forward. We tippenny, we fear, naevil, we Uskawe, I don't know how to say that word. Okay, just basically with alcohol, huh? We'll face the devil. So when we're drunk, we'll face the devil. The SWAT say reamed in Tammy's noddle. Fair play, he cared na devils a boddle. But Maggie stood right. Sayer astonished. That's his horse. So basically, he's goes to where he can see what's happening in the church, and he's shocked, and his horse is also extremely shocked. She ventured forward on the light, but she starts walking forward to the light, and Tam saw an uncool sight. Warlocks and witches in a dance. Nae cotillion or cotillion Brent knew for France, but hornpipes, jigs, strathspeys, and reels put life and metal in their heels. So he sees that the witches and the warlocks, the ghosts and the demons and the devils, not devils, but the ghosts and the demons and the dead things, the evil things, they're all dancing, and they're dancing to the bagpipes. Okay, so he sees a scene of dancing to the bagpipes. And what he notices, which terrifies him most of all, a Winnick bunker in the east, there sat Old Nick. Old Nick is the devil, in the shape of a beast, a towsy tyke, black and grim, like a dog. Let me just double check that. Shaggy, yeah, like a dog. Large to give them music was his charge. So the devil is playing music for the witches and the demons and the ghosts, the dead things, the spirits that are dancing. Yeah, the devil is playing music for the dead. Essentially, the devil is playing music for the dead. He screwed the pipes and got them skirl to a roof and rafters did. I did Durl. Coffins stood round like open presses that showed the dead in their last dresses. So there's even zombies here. Um, there's even zombies that are dancing too. And by some devilish cantrip sleight, each in its cold hand held a light, in which heroic Tam was able to note upon a table a murderer's banes and give it urns. To a span lang we unchristened bairn. So there's dead children on the table. There's dead children on the table. And um essentially this is probably the main moment of excitement when people will be telling the story, for the listener and for the storyteller too. You have the devil playing the bagpipes, and you have witches and scary things dancing, to the devil's music. And you have to remember as well, like when this was being told, at the time, people, this is not very far away from people being hanged for witchcraft and so on. Witchcraft may have still been on the books in terms of Scottish law. I'm not exactly sure when it got taken off the books, if it, when that happened, but witchcraft may have still been on the books for, Scottish law, and people would still possibly have been, tried for witchcraft and so on. So, for us, it's a funny story and it's comedy, but for them, though they would have laughed at him being an alcoholic and so on, there would have been a lot of people who believed this story to be true and who would have been very afraid at this point, who would have been sort of scared, and who would have viewed this as not fiction but as reality, as non-fiction. Um, it's an interesting question. Why are they dancing, and why is there music? Right? Why are they not like killing someone, or why are they not doing something like that? Um, I think I think essentially, what this does very nicely is, uh there's a classic, or there's a sort of feature of horror, the genre of horror, which makes which creates fear by having like a monster do something which is characteristic of a normal person, or even of a good person, something like that, or a happy person. I'll give you an example. One of the most fear-inducing things, one of the most terrifying things to a lot of people, is to see a killer smile. Huh? Or to imagine if you see the devil. If you've seen the devil and he shouts at you, people will be terrified, of course. But if you see the devil and he smiles at you, he smiles at you. To see the devil smile at you, that would be a different level of terrifying, right? Because it's like making the monster do something that you would not expect it to do, and therefore it's another level of fear because it makes you question your understanding of what a monster is. Understand? That's why it's so scary. Because you wouldn't expect the devil to smile. You would expect him to be angry or to be looking violent or aggressive or something. But if he's smiling, then it means that you don't know what the devil is. You don't understand the devil. And therefore, you may not know how to protect yourself from the devil, or you may run into the devil some other place. Because people you care about smile, people you like smile, you yourself smile. And so it makes you question your perspectives on reality and your understanding of reality and people in general. That's why it's more scary, to have them dance, to have them sing, or not sing, but to have them dance and to have the devil play music. Things which are enjoyable and fun, being done by monsters, makes it even more terrifying, yes, and more memorable too. Um, which is, in a sense, uh, probably one of the reasons why he did it. Okay, so anyway, Tam is watching this happening. He's watching them he's watching them all dance, and he's scared. He's terrified. Okay, and they continue dancing. They continue dancing until basically what happens. They continue dancing until uh uh he just mentions all this is just people are there. A garter with a babe had strangled, a knife, a father's throat had mangled, whose son left people being killed and everything like that. Killers are here. There's weapons, blood-stained weapons, and things like that. Okay, so uh, as Tammy glowered amazed and curious, the mirth and fun grew fast and furious. They started to dance even more faster and even more intensely. The piper loud and louder blew. That's the devil. The dancers quick and quicker flew. They reeled and they set, they crossed, they cleek it to Ilka, Carlin, Swat, and Reek. So these old hags, essentially, these old women, witches dance so much that they take off their clothes and they throw them on the ground. So it's like a it's like a gross scene. And what you're gonna see now is the speaker make a comment about this, makes a joke about it basically. I put this here. He makes a joke about it. Okay, and he says, no, now Tam, had they been queens a plump and strapping in their teens, so if they'd been young women, their sarks instead of creasy flannin, being Snow White 1700 linen, if they were wearing fancy clothes, their breeks o' mine, my only pair that at once were plush and good blue hair, I would have given them of my hardies for a blink of the bonny. So basically saying that if they were young women that were like hot, basically, he would have taken off his trousers and sold them, his fancy trousers. He would have sold them. There's probably an innuendo there. He would have sold his trousers just for a peek. But he's saying, but whether Beldrums, old and droll, Ringwood, hags with speed and full, loping and flinging a crummock, I wonder didn't turn your stomach. So basically, but saying like seeing these old women with no clothes on, he said, I want to be sick. He's saying like, I want to be sick. How come you didn't throw up watching these old women dance? Yeah, how come you didn't throw up? And again, this is sort of that comedic thing that I talked about in the beginning. At this point, people would be able to point to like older women and be like, "You're like one of them, like you're like one of these hags that throw off her clothes." And it's like again, it's like making fun of something that taking something which is there in the society, like an older woman, and then making a joke of it, which people would have thought of, but they wouldn't have said that. Like an old woman dancing around taking her clothes off is like a lot of people would think that's gross, it's nasty, but they wouldn't say that yet because obviously it's like offensive. So him saying it in this way, it makes it funny. Like that's the point. So again, it's another sort of comedy component in the poem. Okay, but Tam kenned what was for Brawley. There was a winsome wench. Okay, so but among all these witches, these hags, old women, there was one pretty girl, and Wally, or Wowley, I think that is, the knight enlisted in the corps. Long after it kenned on Carrick shore, for many a beast to dead she shot, and perished many a bonny boat. So he spots a pretty girl among all of these old hags, who who is pretty, but she is deadly. That's her there, yeah, dancing with this short dress, cutty sark, short dress slash skirt, um, short, and she is an evil. She is an evil but very pretty girl. She's an evil but very pretty girl. And what this is a commentary on, I believe, or what this is going to be referencing this when he's talking about Nanny, who is the girl in the cutty sark, meaning the short shirt or short dress, revealing dress, if you like. He's basically making a commentary on how young, pretty women have a very, or can have a very profound effect on married men, or even men in general, in that they have their beauty gives them a sort of power, which they can use to destroy a married man. Excuse me. Or a married man can destroy himself because of their beauty, because he's becomes obsessed with her, and so he can like self-destruct now. Like in the classic Greek myths, there was the sirens, I believe they were called, that were believed to be like sort of beautiful water spirits, um, that would sing to the men. I believe it's from Jason and the Argonauts. This is where this comes from, I think. Um, and they would sing to the sailors, and the sailors would fall so in love with their beauty and their voices and everything that they would either jump off the ships into the ocean, or they would crash their ship. Basically, they would crash their ship because of them, because of their, I should say, because of their inability to deal with their beauty, basically. So he's laying out this archetype, and the beautiful young girl who's also evil in a sense. She's evil. Okay. So um and again, this would have been a feature. You need to think about again this poem. Why is it so popular? Because this would have been a feature in his society, huh? In his society, it's recognized even till this day, right? The power that a woman, especially a young, pretty woman, can have on men, can have on men. She has a lot of power, especially on men that are not used to or don't know how to deal with her beauty. She can make them self-destruct, and she has the ability to use her beauty in an evil way, a destructive way, if she chooses to. Okay, and shook both Meikle, Corn, and Bear and kept the countryside in fear. So people were scared of her because of her beauty and the damage she caused with it. Her cutty sark, meaning the short dress of paisley yarn, that while lassie she had worn in longitude so scanty, it was her best. She was wanty, a little ken the every granny, that sark she coughed for her wee nanny. So her grandma bought it for her. She's a witch. She's like undead, something like that. Whatever grace the dance of witches. But here my muse her wing, my core, sick flights are beyond her power to sink her nanny left and flank. So she's dancing, 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 and Tam is, uh, he's obsessed with her. Huh? Basically, he can't stop looking at her. He's entranced, enchanted. He can't stop looking at the witch. He can't stop looking at the little witch. Okay, and thought this very even enriched. Even Satan glored. So this woman is so, this young woman is so beautiful that even the devil himself is sort of staring at her. He can't take his eyes off her. Um, and fidge for fain and hodge them blow we might and main till first they caper sign another. Tam tint is reading all together. So basically, he can't stop looking at her. He can't stop staring at her until while she's dancing around, while she's moving around. It makes him lose his mind. It makes him lose his mind, and I'd say this is a very accurate representation of the power that excuse me of the power that a pretty young woman can have on a man, especially a man that's not used to seeing pretty girls or being with pretty girls. I'll give you, do you want me to tell you a story? I'll tell you a crazy story. Let me tell you a story about a witch. Okay, I'll tell you a story about a witch. Yeah. If you're watching this witch, don't trip yet. Listen, I ain't gonna say your name, but I'll tell you a true story about a witch. Yeah. Check this out. So, not too long ago, I myself was talking to a girl, yeah, and pretty girl, and funny enough, she was funny enough, she was into this whole witchcraft stuff. For me, it's just a joke, yeah. But in any case, she's into witchcraft stuff. She's got a cauldron, all type of stuff. Yeah, she's a bit on the flipping. Yeah, I'm saying. So, any case, this girl, okay, talking about Tam O'Shanter is 300 years old. This girl, yes, a guy paid this girl £500. Check this out, yeah, true story. I swear to God, yeah. A guy paid this girl £500 just to talk to her for a conversation. Check. The guy paid this chick £500 for a conversation. You understand? That's the power of female beauty to people who are not used to it. Now, me, I ain't paying nothing yet, obviously. You dumb bro, come on. I ain't paying nothing yet. We were talking all day, right? But this guy paid this girl, yeah, £500 just to talk to her. And you know what happened? This little witch scammed him. She didn't even talk to the guy. She just basically laughed at him and told me the story. You know what I'm gonna do? Yeah? Give me 1 second. Let me grab my phone real quick. Yeah, watch this. Let me show you. You don't believe me? Let me show you. Hmm. I'm gonna show you the. You guys think I'm capping you? Check this out. All right, let me show you. All right, check this out. Let me show you the picture. 1 second. All right, look at this here. Hold on. Watch this. Like, you read this? Look. Look. 2 to 3 weeks ago, a man paid me £500 just to talk to him. Okay, then watch what happens next time. Look at this. Look. I didn't talk to him. I just took his money. Crazy, nah? And then you know what happened next? It gets even worse, huh? Look at this, huh? It gets even worse. Watch this. Some brothers be thirsty. Oh, yeah, yeah, watch this. Look. Look at this, yeah. So, after that happened, the guy messaged her again, okay? And he basically said to her, that's the worst 500. He basically said to her, that's the worst £500 I ever spent. And then he started talking about her feet. Yeah, weird guy, man. But the point is, okay, the point is that, yeah, women, especially pretty women, have an extreme power, yes, on men, especially men that are not used to them. They have an extreme power and can make men self-destruct. And a lot of women know this, and they use this power like in a negative way. Like this girl basically scammed that guy, or the guy scammed himself, yeah, depending on how you look at it. But she essentially scammed him, yeah, and she laughed at him for it as well. She didn't feel bad about him. Um, we don't talk anymore, by the way. We don't talk anymore. Yeah. But anyway, if you watch this, text me. Actually, don't. Don't, yeah. Go talk to someone else. But I'm busy. I'm teaching these fine students of mine. But anyway, the point is this, right? That yes, young women, yes, they can make a man self-destruct. Yeah, using in terms of their beauty, their looks, and we know this. Yeah, just look at obviously the huge, massive rise of the OnlyFans industry, and everything else. Yeah, you can see. Okay, so the point is that Burns is touching on this in his representation of this young woman, Nanny, um who almost makes or who essentially does make Tam O'Shanter to some extent self-destruct. He loses all his rational thinking, although he's already drunk, but he loses all of his thinking. He shouts out in the middle of a crowd of demons, essentially of evil things, which will kill him. But still, to try and get her attention, he shouts. He can't help himself. Basically, he can't help himself. Okay, so it's a reflection on that. Now, obviously, the question is she evil, and who do you blame? If you think ethically speaking, who should the blame go to for a man self-destructing because of woman's beauty? I would say both. Both. If it's done intentionally, like this girl here, she has to take, she has to take that unethical behavior which she engaged in, scamming someone for half a G. She has to take that on. Yeah, she did something bad there. Yeah, she did something bad. Yeah, you can't argue with that. That's one. But the man himself, yeah, he himself is choosing to self-destruct. So he too, yeah, he himself is messing up. Yeah, like guys that send girls money and all that. Yeah. So it's both. It's both essentially. Okay. Anyway. So anyway, he shouts out, "Well done, Cutty Sark." He doesn't even say her name, or he doesn't even say pretty girl or something. He just refers to her, the outfit she's wearing, the short dress that she's wearing. So he's gone. Yeah, he's gone. Not thinking straight. Okay, in an instant, all was dark. Yeah, as soon as he shouts out at her, everything goes dark. Again, in a way, sort of in a meta way, I guess, referencing the pleasure idea. As soon as it's achieved, or as soon as it's grasped, or it's aimed at, it's gone. Yeah, and as soon as you see it, he gets to see her dance for a bit, and then it's over. Yeah, okay. In an instant, all was dark, and scarcely had he Maggie rallied, meaning his horse, get running, when out the hellish legions sallied, yeah, the army of demons and spirits and evil things. They all rush out of the broken church, as bees buzz out of an angry hive, when plundering herds assail their bike and old. Ba-ba. Eager market crowd catch the thief resounds aloud, so Maggie runs the witches follow. Way many an eerie screech and hollow. Yeah. So now they're all chasing him. Yeah, he's being chased by all of the witches and demons and spirits. Yeah, they're all trying to catch him. Tam, you'll get their reward in hell. They'll roast you like a herring. In vain, Kate awaits thy coming. So remember, all the time he's been staring at this young, pretty girl. All the time he's been staring at her. His wife has been waiting for him at home. So again, you can see he himself, he himself has been acting unethically, and his drinking and so on has started to cause damage, actual damage. So to some extent, he just to some extent cheated on his wife, visually, if you like. Didn't actually cheat, but to some extent he cheated visually. He would have liked to have cheated if he could have gotten the opportunity. So he's getting his comeuppance now by being chased by devils and demons. Kate will soon be a woeful woman. Now do your most, your speedy utmost, Meg, that's his horse, and win the key stain of the brig. So run as fast as you can to the bridge. There at them you, uh, thy tail may toss, which is it's actually foreshadowing of what's gonna happen. It's sort of like a wordplay that you'll get away. You'll get away. You're gonna be running so fast you can toss your tail at them that you'll be getting away. A running stream they dare not cross. So this was seen as a bridge, which was like a special for some reason superstition that demons or whatever they can't go across this bridge. And I believe it's the bridge of Duna or something like that. But here before the key stain she could make the faint a tail she had to shake for Nanny. That's the little witch. Far before the rest, hard upon noble Maggie pressed, and flew at Tam with furious intent. So they get to the bridge, and he's almost across, and he gets across, but that little witch Maggie, who he was trying to pick up, essentially, he's trying to talk to, he's trying to get her attention. She has gotten right behind him, and right as he gets across, she pulls the tail off the horse. She pulls the tail off the horse. Okay, like that. You can see the horse is bleeding. She pulls the tail off the horse. Poor horse. Didn't even do anything to get involved, but because of the horse's master, the horse got hurt. Again, again, possible reflection on the nature of excessive pleasure or excessive pleasure, which turns into pain due to excess. In that, almost always, once you pursue pleasure in that to an excess, like excessive drinking or anything else, um, excessive clubbing, excessive anything, gaming, anything, you almost always damage the people around you. They almost always get damaged by it, even though they didn't have anything to do with your choices. Like his horse has been damaged, even though the horse has been good to him. And this is the worst part about, engaging in negative habits and behaviors. It's most often the people who are good to you, who are nice to you. I think this is the worst thing that happens to drug addicts, for example, or alcoholics. His wife is suffering because of his choices, and his horse suffered, who has just been good to him and obedient and so on to him, and protected him, with running away. And the horse has been damaged by him, and this is what happens. Like for example, drug addicts and so on, people who engage in different excessive behaviors, people who can't stop gambling. It's the people closest to them that get damaged by it. People who are nice to them or kind to them. This is the cost of excessive pleasure, basically, or of excess, you could say. Not success, excess, doing too much, going to extremes. Okay, but Lois Magismeo brings a spring, so she jumped, brought off her master's hill, meaning she got across the bridge and kept her time safe, but left behind her own grey tail. So the witch has ripped off. The Carlin caught her by the rump and left poor Maggie scarce a stump, so she ripped off her tail. Now, what this tale of truth shall read, like man and mother's son, take heed. Whenever to drink you are inclined. This is the last lines of the poem. And this is the message now of the poet, of the speaker, to man and mother's son. So to all men and boys, all men and boys, pay attention. Now he's told you this very nice story. Now pay attention to the message of the story. To all men, man and mother's son, men, grown men and boys, take heed, listen. Whenever to drink you are inclined, anytime you think about drinking, or cutty sark, short skirts run through your mind, think you may buy the joys very dear. And remember Tam O'Shanter's mare. So whenever you start thinking about drinking, like Tam did, or you start thinking about chasing short skirts, think about what happened to Tam. Think about him, and basically, don't make the same mistake that he did. That's the idea. Now, the ending in and of itself, the ending in and of itself, again, is sort of ambiguous in terms of the moral, because if the moral was that you shouldn't, like I said before, engage in any pleasure, you shouldn't engage in any fun, or you shouldn't do anything, you should just focus strictly on virtue, like that first camp that I explained. If that was the moral, then Tam would have died. He wouldn't have made it home. He would have died. But that didn't happen. He makes it home, and his horse is damaged, but he makes it home. He's safe. Nothing happens to him. So the moral is ambiguous, right? The moral is not, therefore, I believe this is the moral. The moral, therefore, must be that, have fun, enjoy yourself, but just don't go to excess, like Tam. Because if you go to excess, you'll lose sort of ability to control yourself, and you'll lose your ability to do the right thing and to, avoid pain and avoid causing pain to people. And you'll get hurt, basically. You'll get hurt. That's like the idea. I believe that's the moral in the story. So that's the poem. Okay, it's a very nice narrative. It's a very nice sort of we touched on many things, many different ideas in the poem. Um, we touched on many different concepts, in the poem. Um, in terms of key takeaways, for this poem, if you wanna try and understand, the key features of this poem, again, it's a philosophical, at the heart of it, philosophical reflection on pleasure and, the ethics of pleasure, if you like, the nature of pleasure. It's also a classic comedy and also a classic horror. It's an example of early viral content. Um, and it's an example most, I would say, of just like a good story, which should be studied if you want to, create your own stories, even modern stories, using modern media like videos and stuff. Um, in that it's short, it gets straight to the point. All the characters are very likable. There's no unlikable characters in the story. Um, and overall, it focuses on truths which we can recognize, even if we haven't exactly put them into words ourselves. So that's the poem, and we're done pretty much with the Burns collection. There's other Burns. I've done all the Burns now from the SQA Burns collection, and that's it. Yeah. And again, if you're watching Little Miss Witch, don't hit my phone yet. Don't hit my phone unless you're gonna come with a flipping apology and a chocolate cake in it. Then maybe, yeah, maybe I'll accept it. But otherwise, all right. Take care.